Hello and welcome to another video. So I wanted to try out the new HavenCraft card, and this deck does an okay job of supporting it. Of course, we're running Goblins and Ether of the Wind, mainly because they're quite decent cards when it comes to running it with Saint Hairs. I would prefer to run probably 3 Saint Hairs, but I was testing 2 just so I didn't waste a heap of vials on it, since I already had to craft up these 2 anyway, so 2 seemed like a reasonable number at least to test the deck out. Legendary Fighter, still pretty decent. Forgotten Sanctuaries, Holy Lord, Sister of Judgment combos really nicely with these low cost cards, and that's really all there is to it. You really just need to get that out, be pretty aggressive with it, and then dominate the board in kind of the mid-ish game, which is pretty easy to do. So we're going to get right into this and check. So this first game isn't too impressive. The second and third game are going to be much better as far as they go, but I wanted to at least show off that this deck can stabilize itself pretty easily, even without drawing into Hairs, which is of course the core card of the deck mainly, but you definitely have other options and other ways to deal with things. And I quite enjoy using Featherfall Hourglass. Very solid turn 1 play if you don't have anything else in hand, since of course proccing on 4 is usually a reasonable thing. So the turn 1 pass definitely helps. I also try and focus on draw power as much as I kind of can. I really wanted to get as much draw as possible. Being able to potentially get the Hairs is what was important here. I ended up throwing the pass because I didn't want to waste anything in my hand. There was really nothing to use. That's why things went so smoothly there. Plus they weren't really playing anything. And of course protecting from attacks because they do have an evolve point available. So we can at least potentially get some damage in. Unfortunately, Nova Flare blocked that out. But we can go for Forgotten Sanctuary, which will pretty much end this game, as really difficult to remove that when you don't have that many good cards to do so in Rune, without wasting a body. Really, that's kind of the end point. If you can't deal with the 5/4, it's really hard to do. Okay, now for the next 2 games, we're actually going to have some decent back and forward with this deck and how it performs with Hairs, which is more important. I think running 2 is the real problem on why in that first match that I showed off I didn't end up getting it at all. Having 3 definitely does increase your odds quite a bit compared to just running 2. I mean, going from a 1 in 20 chance to a 1 in roughly 13-ish chance is a fairly substantial increase. So kicking things off, we don't really have much. Jeweled for White Diamond, probably our best player, especially since we already have Hollowed Dogma, so if we want to draw next turn, that's always possible. Which, if they don't play anything crazy, is probably going to be the best move to basically buff our hand out. Now we don't want to attack into, of course, the 1/1, because we don't want them to gain any crazy stats. Magical Marksman isn't an issue. But now we're pretty stable. Moriakium. Going for double of those. We're going to take a little bit of damage. Didn't really have any option. I mean, I could have potentially got rid of 1 card there, but I felt like it wasn't going to be worth it for the amount of damage I was going to take. At least now we're going to have a chance to wipe this board. We'll come very close to wiping this board. So we do get to clear the 2/1. And I'm pretty okay with leaving the 4/4 up since it's already evoed. It means it can't really deal that much more damage to us. And we're going to pretty much stabilize in the next couple of turns by the looks of it with what we have with the Holy Lord and things like that. So it's really not a big deal. Double Legendary Fighter. It's a little bit of a rough draw, but something we might be able to take advantage of to do massive amounts of damage. Also, I can't remember if I did end up getting to use Hair in this match, thinking about it. Because I believe these Legendary Fighters actually end up being the core of this matchup in particular. Since making them unattackable against Sword makes them reasonably hard to clear, as most Sword decks don't run any decent spell clears that are wide hitting, so they would have had 2 cards to deal with it. Or got lucky with those pings, which of course they didn't. So Holy Lord, That's 8 damage to the face. Or 16 damage to the face, sorry, once you add the, of course, double attack buff. Yeah, so it was this turn that I didn't really get to use the hairs until kind of late game. I mean, turn 8 to 10 is pretty much late game, with turn 5 to 7 being mid. Maybe even 4 to 7, vaguely, because that's when kind of Evo becomes an issue, but it's not too bad. I don't get to use the Evo, unfortunately, because of course I did use my Evos. But considering how we were going in the match, I didn't have too many options. At least this way, we do get to secure a pretty nice board. Provided they don't end up with a board clear. Which, Dancing Blade is actually a pretty decent board clear for Sword now, even if it's not super potent and it does have to waste the card. It's really the only decent board clear they've got outside of Usurping, which most people don't run in rotation. So again, that is probably the only card which you don't really want to use as a board clear unless you have to, which obviously is the situation they're in now. We can actually deal with this, so that's nice. We have our Holy Lord, which we can set up some wards with. Which means I do just ram this goblin. And leave them with just 2 health. And there's another Dancing Blade, so they wasted Dancing Blades to clear this and still did not have enough. Now for the last match of this video, we're going up against a Portal. Portal has been rising up quite strongly at the moment, no surprise. Portal's always been a good deck, it's just a matter of whether it could make itself into a top tier deck. It'll be much more interesting to see once Chronogenesis rotates out next month. Whether Portal can of course sustain itself once it loses all its kind of core cards. Featherfall Hourglass. Again, not a bad way to start things off, and we've got the Black Inscriptions to deal with this legendary fighter. Even if it's not my favourite way to do things in the early game. Puppet Room. It looks like they're definitely running a Maisha finisher deck. I mean, why wouldn't you at this point? And there's Hairs, so that's exactly what we want before turn 4. Saint Hairs. Sniper on a Puppet is not good. If I had to pick any card to use Sniper on, Puppet would definitely not be it. Now, a chance to allow for 1 play point buffing. I never get lucky though with Hairs. It's very rare that I manage to pull 2 onto board. I think, yeah, if I definitely run 3, I could use that, of course, to a better advantage and potentially get more Hairs into the deck quicker, but 2 is definitely a good way to test the deck and see how it performs, and overall it performed reasonably well. Out of the games I played with it, it won about 70% at the moment. Of course, that will go down as things become more refined and as I find worse matchups, but for my small sample size I did get to play with it, that's pretty reasonable. So Black Inscription. We still got Evos as well, so we can actually go for some damage. Set up this legendary fighter pretty easily. Fortunately, we didn't have an amulet to play, but even just as a beat stick, that's 8 damage on its own with the Evo. Heartless Battle. No surprise, legendary fighter is the first target. Orb of Destruction. Now that one is an interesting. I haven't got to use Orb of Destruction yet. I believe I crafted a couple of them. I just need to build a deck around it. But we have what would be considered a pretty insane board now. Unfortunately, this buff doesn't work out in the way I'd hope. I wish it was based on play points and not on attack and defense for basing it on what's best, but yeah, it worked enough. So I hope you guys were able to enjoy this video. I actually do really enjoy Saint Hairs as a card, and I think as things can be refined down some more, it has a lot of potential, especially going into next expansion. I think it's going to have a lot more potential. It's effectively a Snow White in the way that it can recycle itself, but of course summoning bodies, so it does have a very similar stat line to Snow White. Of course you do want to play in the Enhanced 4, which makes it a little bit more expensive, but even as a 1-drop, getting the effect just to drop hairs into the deck once you are in that kind of late game scenario, you could definitely recycle that a lot. I would like to probably test it in limited, see if I could build something crazy off it. Probably can't, but I could definitely see the possibility, maybe even with an Elena deck, healing, just dropping one of these could be nuts, so we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, see ya.